together again and sing a few hymns and pray. Most of all, to pray. We'll pray now for this meeting that we're putting together and having. I'm thankful that we can do it. Thank the Lord that we're able to do it. I'm glad for each one of y'all are here. And pray the Lord will bless us tonight. Pray the Lord help us to get our minds on Him for just a few minutes. And whatever He wants to do here tonight, that we'll let Him do it, let Him have His way. So I'll try to pray right now. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in Jesus' name. Lord, I'm thankful, Lord, we can be in church tonight. I'm thankful, Lord, for each one that's here. I thank you for the church family you've given us and our family we put here together. And Lord, this is what you've given us, Lord. This is such as it is, Lord. We can look around and find fault with each other, but we can't find fault with you, Lord. What you've done, you put us together for a reason. And this is the family we have, Lord, and I'm thankful for it, Lord. I'm thankful we do have a family, Lord. There's people who don't have a family, don't have others who care about them and love them. And I'm glad for that, Lord, tonight. Help us now, Lord, tonight to be able to see you tonight and something's done here tonight. I pray that we'll be able to lift you up and what's said and what's done here tonight, Lord. We didn't come for any other purpose tonight, Lord, but just to pray and to lift you up, to glorify you, Lord. And we pray we can do that, Lord. You'll help us. The Holy Spirit will give us a little nudge tonight, Lord, and let us see you a little bit and lift you up. Well, thank you for whatever we can do tonight, Lord. I thank you for loving us enough, Lord, to give us a place like this. Lord, help us not take it for granted, Lord, what we have here in the church. There are other people that don't have this opportunity that we do tonight to be together, Lord, and worship you. I thank you, Lord, for your Son, Jesus Christ, and I thank you for salvation that we have through him. I thank you, Lord, that it's free, and it's free for any that will receive it. And I do pray for the ones that haven't yet received it, Lord, that you save them, Lord. I believe you're going to. I believe you put them here for a reason. You put them here, Lord, for that purpose, Lord, to get them saved, Lord, and we don't know how or when you're going to do it, Lord. We want to trust you, Lord, and believe you're going to do that. I thank you for everything, Lord, that you've done. Bless us now. Help us, Lord. Help the ones maybe that will be singing whatever's done here tonight, Lord. Let's ask you to bless it for your name's sake. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I don't usually pick out any songs for Wednesday night, just whatever the Lord puts on our heart to sing. And I've had a request coming in the door, and it's not one that we would normally sing with a small crowd, but we'll try it anyway. We have a good piano player, excellent piano player, and I'm sure she can carry our voices as weak as they may be. What's the song that you want to sing?
124, Always Comfort Me.
124, The Great Physician.
142, sorry.
142. Our dyslexic son previously. That's for 142.
There
sing An Old Account Settled, which is number 53. Huh? Yeah, I was waiting for someone to say it, but he couldn't hear. singing right there. Does anybody have something we're going to sing tonight?
Got anything from me?
No, not really.
Come up, everyone, please.
What's that?
Come up, everyone.
All right.
Looking down through the ages, God beheld a dying soul. Sin had brought on separation, nevermore could make me whole. There must come a Lamb, one whose blood alone redeems, bringing gifts to the Father of souls made white and clean. And when He sees me, He sees the blood of the Lamb. He sees me as worthy and not as I am. He views me in garments as white as the snow. For the Lamb of God is worthy, and He washed me, this I know. Then He left that holy city, traveling on to the cross, just to bridge the gulf to glory and to rescue all the lost. With His blood He entered into the throne room of our God, and on the mercy seat He placed it, salvation for us all. And when He sees me, He sees the blood of the Lamb. He sees me as worthy and not as I am. He views me in garments as white as the snow. For the Lamb of God is worthy, and He washed me, this I know.
Amen. Amen. I got thinking about several of you kids that have been working and making money. And so you have been able to enjoy the blessings of having some of your own money in your pocket, but also with the blessing of having your own money, then comes the decision of how you're going to spend it and what you're going to do with it. A lot of something Granddad, Preacher Potter, have not ever talked about it much in our church, but a lot of churches, they talk about tithing all the time. And I don't know if you all understand exactly what tithing is. Tithing comes from the word meaning 1/10. And so that means to like give 1/10 of everything that you make or everything that you earn to the church. And a lot of churches really push that. They have, they keep lists of who makes their tithing, gets all their money turned in, and you get a big star on the board and stuff, and they make it a really big deal. The first time that anything talking about the tenth was mentioned in the Bible was way back in Genesis, and I'm going to look at that just for a second, just a couple of verses in Genesis 28. And this was, so if you'll turn to Genesis 28, this is when Jacob was going out, and he was going to find a wife, and he stopped along the way, and he had a dream, and and God spoke to him. And in verse 13, it said, "And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and I will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken of thee." So, God told Jacob, "I'm going to bless you. I'm going to use you. I'm going to bless everybody on earth through you, through your seed. I'm going to multiply your seed, meaning I'm going to give you lots of kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, and I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to bless the whole earth through you." So it was quite a thing for Jacob, for God to tell him this. And so when Jacob woke up from his dream, he built an altar to the Lord, and then in verse 22, he says, "And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house." So before that, he said he took the stone that he had laid his head on for a pillow, and he said, "I'm going to take this stone, and I set it up as a pillar. This place will be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee." So he says, "Lord, if you're going to bless me like this, I'll give you," he set up an altar to praise God, and he said, "God, if you'll do this, I'll give you 1/10 of everything that you give to me," which is a good thing. He gave it from his heart. He got blessed from what God told him, and he was happy about it. And so it was a great thing. He gave it out of a heart of just filled up with love for God, for what God was doing, and he saw how God was going to bless him. God promised to bless him. And so he said, "Lord, I'll give you part of this back if you're going to do that for me." Later, through Jacob, came the children of Israel. And so this is generations later. There's thousands or hundreds of thousands of the children of Israel, and they had a law now that you had to give 1/10 of everything that you get. And this money, this 1/10 of everything, 1/10. Oh, 1/10 means like if you get $10, you give $1. So if you get $100, you give $10. So 1/10 means for every 10, you give 1. So 1/10, that's what it's called, 1/10 of what you have. So everything they made, and for the children of Israel, when they had a harvest, and they gathered in all the wheat, say, and if there were 10 big piles of wheat, well, one of them was for their tithe, and back then the tithe went to the Levites, which were the priest. There was 12 tribes, and one of the tribes was the Levites, and they were the priests. They didn't have their own land, and they didn't have their own way of making money, so everybody else's tithe went to the priests, to the church. So just like today, people are corrupt and people are, the way we are. So but after a while, the Levite priests started preaching, hey, you better make sure you get your tithe in. You better make sure you get this, when you take your harvest, make sure you bring the 1/10 to us. Because they're just like anybody else, they were worried about themselves, and they were worried about them getting their share. And just, like I said, people, just like human nature, I guess, where most of us are sinners and corrupt. We're all sinners, most of us. We're all sinners and we're all corrupt. And so after a while it became, instead of being like Jacob, who gave the 1/10 out of his heart and out of wanting to give back something to God, after a while it turned into now this is the law, you have to give it to us. And people, it was like a tax. It wasn't like a gift anymore. It wasn't like, oh, we want to give this to the Levites. It was like, okay, this is what you have to give, like it or not. So it wasn't giving out of a heart to give. It was giving out of obligation, and out of, because that's what the law said. By the time that Jesus came to this earth, of course, the system was still in place, and they were still obligated to give tithes. But in the New Testament, when Jesus came, Jesus came and he told us a lot about what he wanted the church to do and how he wanted the church to be. And he said, I fulfilled the whole law, and these are the things I want you to do. And he didn't say, okay, I want y'all to continue giving the tithe. He didn't say that. Of course, the children of Israel, they still had their own law, and they still were doing it. But there was only, the tithe is only mentioned in the New Testament after Jesus came only a handful of times. And most of those times is when Jesus is criticizing the Pharisees about, oh, all y'all worry about is the tithe. You don't have any love, and you don't care about anybody else. All you care about is the tithe. And that's the only time Jesus never said to the people, to the church, that he never said, oh, y'all need to give the tithe, y'all need to he only said, hey, you Pharisees need to stop worrying about the tithe. There's things more important than that, which they weren't seeing, because like I said, all they cared about was getting their money. Let's look at Luke chapter 11. Luke chapter 11 and verse 42. See, this is one of the examples where Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and these Pharisees were like the priests. So they were the religious rulers of the day. And he said, "But woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment and the love of God. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone." He said, what you need to do is stop worrying about the tithe and the money and what you're getting. You need to worry about the other things, which is the love of God. He said, you're passing over the love of God. You're completely missing the point, and you're just worried about the money itself. And so, like I said, Jesus wasn't concerned about, oh, you need to make sure you continue to give the 1/10. He could have said that. He told us how he wanted the church to do, and he said, I fulfilled the law, but from now on I want you to love each other, love the Lord thy God with all your heart. He told them several things he wanted them to do, but keeping up with paying the tithe was not one of the things he said for them to do. What he did mention a lot was giving. Okay, there's a difference between tithing, there's a difference between tithing and giving, especially in the sense that we're talking about here, because the tithe had become a tax. It had become something they were having to give without wanting to give it. They were giving it without it coming from their heart. Jesus talked a lot about giving, about helping others, about the church giving, about the church taking care of the poor saints, and there's lots of different references all throughout the New Testament where Jesus talked about giving, never saying that we need to give to the church, never saying that we need to give any certain amount. He just said you need to give, because he wanted people to give out of a heart of giving. One thing, if we realize that everything we have is God's to begin with, it'll make it a little easier for us to give. See, that's the thing is, back then, and of course even today, people see everything they have is theirs. If we'll start to look at and realize that everything we have, God's given us. This home, our cars, any money we make, any money you guys make, it's because God's blessed you and let you make it. And so, if we understand that it's God's to begin with, it's not ours to begin with, it's His, it'll make it a little bit easier for us to not be so, I don't know, it's good, to be so stingy with God's money, which we're holding on to, because it's God's money. Nothing that we have He didn't give us to begin with. If I said, and if I said to somebody, to y'all, if I said, okay, I'm going to give everybody 100 lei a day, and all I ask is that you use some of your money to help somebody else, everybody would say, sure, that's a good deal, you know, because you're going to get 100 lei a day for nothing. You're going to get 100 lei, and all I'm asking you is to, out of this 100 lei, I want you to help somebody else with it. And everybody would say, sure, I'll take that deal, you know. Well, that's exactly the position we're in today. Everything we have, God's given us. And He's just saying, hey, I want you to help somebody else. I want you to care about other people. You know, I've blessed you, and I want you to care about somebody else. And so, but see, we don't see it as that. We see everything that we have, we go buy something, and I'm the same way, I'm not talking about anybody else. You know, I take my cologne and hide it in there so none of the boys come in and use it, you know, because it's mine, you know, and that's the way we are, you know. But if we think about all the things that we have that we could share with others, how we could help others, then if we think about the fact that it's okay, it's, you know, it's all God's anyway, why shouldn't I be able to use it and help it? God wants us to help other people. I mean, God's helped, He's blessed us. He loves, you know, He loves the poor person out that we might run into in the street. He loves them as much as He loves us. He's given us the chance. He's blessed us. He's given us the chance to help them. He wants them to, He wants them to be blessed as much as He wants us to be blessed. And He wants to use us to do that. Y'all all know, you know, maybe you don't know Aunt Sharon, but a lot of y'all know who Aunt Sharon is, and we talked about her a lot. And you know, she's for years worked at Publix and made lots of money, and she had a really good job, and she did really well, and so she had lots of money. And she's said to me before, and I've heard her say it more than one time, that she feels like the Lord really blessed her because she wasn't able to go to the mission field. She wasn't able to go out and do the things that other people could do. There are people that could go and do it, but that God had blessed her with a good job and making lots of money so that she could help those that were able to go. And so that's the thing, is God had blessed her with a lot, and instead of saying, oh, look at all that I have, and I'm going to hang on to what I have, she was very generous. She's always been very generous and said, here, you know, if you need some help, I'll help you. And she helps all kind of people all the time. Because she understands that, okay, God's blessed me, not because I did anything any good, not because I'm worthy of it, not because I'm better than anybody else, but I think He's blessed me because He wants me to help somebody else. And that's what she did. And that's what she did for all these years. And the Lord continued to bless her. The Lord continued to provide for her and give her. And she never, I bet she not one time said, you know, I regret helping this person or that person, because she never felt like, oh, well, now I'm doing without. Because God always provided for her and always took care of her. So the more she gave, the more God blessed her, and the more she was able to give, and she continued to do that all the time. So my next thing I was going to say is that if for no other reason to give, is that you can give because God will bless you. God will multiply what you have. God will, it says somewhere in the Old Testament, and he was talking about giving, and God said, "Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." He was talking about somebody else giving, and he said, "Go ahead and give, because you'll see that if you'll give, I'll open up the windows of heaven and I'll pour down more blessings than you can even keep." He was talking about the storehouse, and then so he was like, "Give it out of the storehouse." And so he was saying, I'll bless you with more than you can even put back into the storehouse. So I'll give you more than you can even hang on to if you'll do that. Another place it says, "Give." This is in Luke 6:38, and this is Jesus talking. It says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again." In other words, you give it out, and God will give it back to you. Now, it's not like, the difference is, it's not like you're running a business and saying, "Okay, let me think, if I give this much, I'll get this much back." That's not what God's looking for. He's looking for you to give out of a heart of giving. He doesn't want to be back like the tithe was with the children of Israel, where he says, "Give me this much, and this is how it works." No, he wants you to give out of your heart. It's another place that says, "God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work." In other words, God can, if you're giving, God can abound back to you so that you can continue to do good works. If you're doing good works and you're giving of yourself, and then we're not talking only about money here either. I mean, some of y'all may think, "Well, I'll wait another 5 years before I earn any money, so this is not for me." But see, God has given you time. He's given you talents. He's given you lots of things, not just money. So there's things that you have that you can share of yourself, and you can give of yourself, and then God can bless you for that. So that's what I'm saying is, for no other reason, the fact that, number one, the talent that you have, or the time that you have, or that you can go and do something nice for somebody else. God's given you that, and you can do that, and God will bless you back. So it's not. Some people are worried that they're gonna, I got this money, and I don't want to spend it. I want to keep it. I want to hang on to it because maybe I'll need it this later, or maybe this or that. But see, God says, if you'll give this in a heart of giving, then I'll give it back to you. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of that if that's what you're really doing. Most of the time, like I said, we're worried about, okay, I'll make a deal, God, and I'll do this if you'll give me that, or I'll do this. But if we'll just give because we want to help somebody, and not worry about the money itself, or God will put it back. God will give it to you. We've seen over the years, we've talked about it, told other people about how, I'm pretty bad about not making a budget, or not keeping up with that, because I'm more worried. I'm afraid that the budget's not going to work out right. I'm afraid the budget's going to be short. I'm afraid that if I figure it out, then I won't do something I might do. You know what I mean? Just like when, say for instance, the bicycle we got for Olivia. I didn't sit down and think, okay, let me look and see if we have this $100 or $200, $100 something dollars that it's going to cost for that bike. I didn't think about it that way. I just said, well, this is something God put on my heart to do, and let's do it, knowing that God's not going to let me suffer or anybody else suffer because we tried to be a blessing to somebody else and help somebody else. So that's what I mean. if you can understand that God will give it back to you, you don't have to worry about that. Don't let that keep you from doing it. That's what I'm trying to say. Another thing, it talks a bit here about not doing things for not helping somebody else for somebody else to give you a pat on the back. Okay, don't do it so that somebody else can see you do it. Don't, do it and then say, oh, look at me, look what I've done, look how I've helped somebody. Jesus talked about I don't know if he's talking about the Pharisees, but he says, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. He's like, do whatever you want to help somebody else, but don't do it for the praise of men. Don't do it for everybody else to see you. Because he said, if you help somebody else and you're like, hey, look at me, I'm helping this person, y'all all look at me, look at how good I am. He said, you've already gotten your reward, and that's the praise of man. You've already gotten, because you showed everybody else what you did, and they're all like, oh, that's great, That's your reward right there. He said, but if you'll just do it and not look for the reward of man's praise, he said, my Father will see you, what you did secretly, and he'll reward you openly. In other words, he'll bless you, and people will look at you and say, wow, God's really blessed this person. And they might not even know that you were blessed because you helped somebody else, but they'll see God's blessing this person. And that's the way, like with Sharon. God blessed her. She didn't ever make a big deal about trying to show off that she was helping everybody else, but God blessed her. I know that a lot of times you might think, well, what about when we go out to somewhere and we give out food and we take a bunch of pictures with all these people? Well, the reason we do that is because that money that came over, we're not actually giving it. I mean, somebody has sent money over to us, or sent clothes, like we take that 40 year, these things, people sent these things over to us, and we're going to go out and give them out, and we're not taking pictures to say, look at us what we did. We're taking pictures so we can send to these people who actually gave the money and say, hey, look what God's blessed with what you did. Not to praise ourselves, but they might get a blessing from seeing how God used them to do things. Paul said in some place, it says, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. So, what Paul's saying here is that, okay, you can do all these things like I'm talking about. You can go give out things, you can go help people, you can give your money, but God's not wanting you to do that. He's wanting you to love Him, and He's wanting you to love these people or whoever it is that you're helping. He's wanting you to do it out of love, not just out of, like I said, not just out of other men's praise or all these things like this, or out of obligation. He wants you to do it because He wants you to care about somebody else. He's just saying, hey, if you'll do it, I'll pay it back to you. I'll help you. I'll bless you. But He's saying, I don't want you to go do it just because you want other men to see you being generous, or or because you're expecting something back from me. You're trying to make a profit or a deal. He said, I want you just to do it out of a heart of a giving heart. And the only way you can do that is through Jesus Christ, through the Holy Spirit being in us, and putting that in our hearts to do. You can't, in ourselves, we're selfish, and we want to hang on to the things we have, and we want to, when the opportunity comes up and we see somebody